I'm Janna Maron, and you're listening to More to the Story, the podcast that's all about creative nonfiction and the power of sharing your personal story.
Tell me a story, tell me true. I want to know what happened to you. The stars are all out and the night is so blue. Tell me a story and I'll tell mine to you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of More to the Story. I'm your host, Janna Marlise Maron. It's good to be back. I haven't done a recording for an intro in a couple of months because the last couple episodes you've been hearing with interviews of my clients. I did a bunch of batch recording all at once a couple months ago. So I have not done a intro recording for a couple of months. It feels good to be back in front of the mic and just kind of talking and sharing and connecting. So hi. It doesn't seem to you like I've been gone, but it feels that way to me. So in addition to this podcast, I am also the publisher and editor of Under the Gum Tree, a literary arts magazine for creative nonfiction and visual art. When this episode releases, at the beginning of April, we should have a new issue either just released or about to release, our spring 2026 issue. And if you can believe it, we'll have an issue in the summer and then an issue in the fall, which is usually out in October. And that fall issue is going to be our 15-year anniversary issue. I cannot believe we are about to be celebrating our 15-year anniversary. And we have some exciting things in the works. Can't share too much just yet, but hopefully by October we'll have a couple of announcements to make. I'm very excited about some of the things that might be able to allow us to grow and expand in ways that we haven't been able to until now. So check out Under the Gum Tree at underthegumtree.com, where you can subscribe and you can also find out information for submitting your work to be considered for publication with us, underthegumtree.com. I am also a book coach for women writing true stories in whatever form that takes, whether that's short form, long form, although as a book coach, of course, I do primarily work on the long form. And you can find out more about my work as a book coach at moretothestory.co. That's .co, not .com. And you can always sign up for a free 15-minute book diagnosis call with me to talk about your book and whatever challenges you might be facing. See what we could talk about that might be some recommended next steps that may or may not include working with me. Of course, I'm always looking for new clients, but sometimes when I talk to folks, they're not ready. Or I'm not the best person to help them. And so when you book a call with me, I'm not automatically trying to sell you on my services. I'm trying to genuinely help you diagnose and discern what your next best steps could potentially be. And that might include working with me and it might not. And if it doesn't, then I'm always recommending other folks or resources that might be helpful to you in your journey. So you can book that call at moretothestory.co/book diagnosis. Book diagnosis is hyphenated, and it'll just take you directly to the link where you can schedule a call with me. And I'm also happy to announce, I can't remember if I've been saying this on the past episodes, but I have started hosting in-person retreats at my home here in Sacramento, California. And maybe Sacramento doesn't really sound like a destination for a writing retreat, but I got to tell you, my property is really cool. There's lots of really wonderful things to do in and around Sacramento, going to the river, taking walks. There's a wonderful bathhouse right near my house. And one of the things that I do with clients when they come to do retreats with me is set up a program and a schedule that incorporates these relaxation and self-care activities, whether that's massage, yoga, bathhouse, river, hikes, walks, whatever would be most supportive to the person who's coming to stay with me. I can do small groups of 3 or I can do custom tailored individual retreats. So if you want more information on that, head on over to moretothestory.co/retreats. There's a wait list you can sign up for there. That really just lets me know that you're interested in retreats, and anytime I send information out about potential retreats, you will automatically get that information. As long as you're on my email list, you'll probably get the information too, but when you sign up for the wait list, that really just designates the folks who are specifically interested in retreats so that I know I can reach out to you specifically about those offerings. Well, I'm happy to say I have one more client interview for you today. And I'm really excited for you to hear this conversation because we just get into a lot of great stuff, of course, around her work and her book that came out a couple years ago, but also in the realm of energy and consciousness, which is what I've been dabbling in with the work I'm doing in human design and helping writers learn how to access and harness their own creative energy through that framework. So we really get into that in this conversation. It was kind of unexpected, but we went there. We followed the energy, as I like to say. So I'm happy to introduce you today to Susie Pratt. She's the author of More or Less, Essays from a Year of No Buying. It was published by Eastover Press in February 2022, and it is her debut collection reflecting on the challenges of raising a family in a consumer society and seeks to understand the degree to which we are defined or are confined by what we own. The book won the 2021 Eastover Prize for Nonfiction. Susie's writing has appeared in a variety of print and online publications, including Literary Mama, Essay Daily, The Mindful Word, Motherwell, The Week, and Bio Stories, among others, including, of course, Under the Gumtree. She has also served as a regular contributor to The Waking, the blog at Ruminate Magazine. She has a master's in social work from the University of Chicago, but her writerly roots can be traced to her degree in English literature from Colgate University, and even more deeply by taking first place in the Young Authors Contest in second grade. Susie lives with her husband, 3 sons, 2 dogs, and a tortoise in Evanston, Illinois. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Susie. Hi, Susie. It's so great to talk with you. Thanks for being here.
It's good to be with you.
I love connecting with all of the people I've been able to work with and just touch base and reconnect, but also like catch up and hear what you've been doing since your book came out and all that good stuff. So if you would just start off with a brief intro to yourself and your book.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Okay, well, thanks to you, Janna. I can say I'm a writer. Not I
You're
have,
an author.
right, I'm an author, but even just naming myself as a writer before I worked with you was tough. So anyway, I am an essayist, and in 2021, my manuscript, which was a collection of essays about raising a family in consumer culture, that was published, that won the Eastover Nonfiction Prize. And so then that press published my book in 2022. So then I had a collection of essays come out and felt very official. And that was after a year of working with you on that collection. And since that time, I've been working on various projects, had some publishing success in different venues, just sort of one-off essays here and there. And I'm sort of slowly working toward another collection.
And the name of the book is?
Oh, the name of my good. That's good. See, that kind of help you provide. The name of the book is More or Less, Essays from a Year of No Buying. It was a collection of essays that I wrote after my family had sworn off buying things for a year. And but really the essays, I mean, this was a challenge that you also helped me navigate. The essays are the year of no buying sort of frames the book, but the essays are about wrestling with consumer culture and all the ways we're, entangled and ensnared in that. So they're larger than just not buying.
Mm-hmm. But it was a really wonderful framework that worked for that concept because you're a family of 5. At the time, you had like 3 teenage boys, right?
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
I just remember going through your material and thinking there's so many little pieces that you can kind of zoom in on from that experience because it brings up so much around. I think I remember you had one essay where one of your boys needed a new pair of shoes or something like that for basketball, right?
Yes, good memory.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a good friend. I mean, you kind of had it locked in, but you were stuck when we first started.
Oh, I was really stuck because I think I was almost like trying to foreground the structure of the year too much. Like remember like the first couple of times I was like, maybe it needs to go sort of chronologically through the year. But really your point is well taken. Like it really wasn't about the chronological experience of not buying anything because that's like not buying anything is not that interesting, just taken unto itself. But it was about the revelations you have about meaning and value and connection and the negative revelations you have about the way you're manipulated and pulled and pushed by consumer culture. And so each essay is really like a standalone piece, but that fits in this kind of um, you know, overall frame of the year.
Hmm. Which is a really, it's like a lesson in writing because so many people struggle with that around structure. We kind of approach it chronologically at first because that's how we experienced it. But
Right.
really, regardless of whether it's an essay collection or a memoir, which is more narrative driven, you're still effectively examining your life through a lens of theme.
I totally agree. And you were very helpful to me in that because I was really paralyzed by the structure question. Once I kind of figured out I didn't have to do it chronologically, then I was like, I don't know. Like I and you just and I was still writing at that point. And
Mm-hmm.
the biggest, I think, well, one of the biggest things you did for me was to just say, like, just keep writing. Just,
Mm-hmm.
like just you don't have to figure out the structure. Because I kept feeling like, well, I don't know how to revise this piece if I don't know where it falls in the collection. And it turned out to just be like really not true. Like I couldn't revise any of the pieces. They were so I think your encouragement to go forward and to sort of write into what then would become the structure and the way it ended up structuring was really organic. I mean, sort of broadly stated, the first half of the book is the problem statement. So they're the essays where I'm kind of diagnosing. I'm like, this, like, why do we have all this stuff in our basement? And why did we go buy things at Target again? And these kind of questions. And then there's I think the reason you remember that basketball essay is the basketball shoe essay is that that's sort of the pivot point essay where I kind
Mm-hmm.
of, it's probably one of the places where I'm most vulnerable in the book about just how hard this experience is and everything. And then the second half of the book is what I call sort of footholds, which are these little things we experienced as success or solution or joy in that year. So it's not like this happy ending necessarily, but it gave me a way to sort of think generally about the book and the structure that then I was like, okay, this is more of a diagnostic essay and this is more of like a foothold essay. So it
Mm-hmm.
was good. It was
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. And I like what you were saying about feeling like you couldn't revise something without knowing where it was going to land in the collection, which again, I think a lot of writers get stuck there. And really what is helpful is to kind of like zoom out a little bit and know that, okay, the bones for all the individual pieces are there and you can arrange them in a sequence that makes sense. And then anything that needs to be signals or clues about
Yeah.
that sequence usually is just like a few sentences that you can drop in.
Yes, totally. And actually, you said this, and then the wonderful guy who ended up being my editor at the small press, he was gave me very similar advice. He was like, "Well, we can figure that out. Just put
Yeah,
that essay where it needs to be. We'll figure that out." So,
yeah,
no, it was great.
yeah,
It was great.
yeah. Remind me, because I know that when we started working together, you didn't have all the material written. So do you
Right.
remember about how much you had when we started?
I had a good chunk
Mm-hmm.
because I had given it to, as we'll call her here, famous writer friend. And famous
Yes.
writer friend had been like, great. And obviously, famous writer friend, giving her the best stuff I had because famous writer. And she was like, great, this is so good. You just have about a year or two more to work on this. Which was like a gut punch, and also accurate. Like she wasn't wrong. There's a reason she's a famous writer. But I was gutted. I was just like done. I was like, and she kind of figured that out. Like she reached out like 2 weeks after she'd read the several of the essays and given me that feedback. And I was like, yeah. She's like, did I really destroy you? And I was like, well, you might have, because honestly, like this is the best I can do, or I wouldn't have given it to you, right? Like, and so she was like, no, you can do it. You can keep going. But I was really like, I was really done. And then this was right around the time of pandemic. So one thing that did help me was I was sort of alone in my house and with time, and these essays who just kind of wouldn't leave me alone, even though I was like, forget it, I'm done. I'm not a writer. I knew it. I knew it. And I think because you had published a piece of mine in Under the Gum Tree,
Yeah.
I got an email from you and it was just like, do you have a collection of work sitting there unattended. Why might that be the case? I don't know, like we're right over. And I was like, what? How does she know? And then from there on, I started, talking to you, and then we started working together. So that's a long answer to your question, but probably like, I bet I had what amounted to like three-fourths of the word count, but probably after revision and after working with you, probably I had less than half of what actually ended up in the book. Do you know what
Right.
I'm saying? Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And I heard you say, this is the best I can do. Like that was where you felt you were at the time you had your famous writer friend read and give you a little bit
Yeah.
of feedback.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I remember you feeling like you were going to get the most out of my reading and editing and feedback.
Totally. Okay, I was thinking, I was so glad you brought this up because I was thinking about this conversation today and I was thinking I wanted to share this with you. So you've heard me say this before, absolutely. Like when I was sort of interviewing you, for this investment that was going to be working with you and everything, I was like, I remember asking you so many times like about your editing style and your editing approach. Like I thought I wanted an editor. And now I think what I realize in retrospect is like what I thought was I really need to pressure test this. Like I need, like let's put it back in the like I need someone to tear it apart again. And if it survives the second time of that, then maybe I really have a book or something. Like I was almost like I was looking for someone to tear it down again, subconsciously, obviously. But like I think finally you were just great. You were just like, yep, yep, I'm gonna edit you. Great. What like whatever, lady. Like I'm gonna edit you. And then you did very thoughtfully edit me while cheerleading for me. And that's a very unique skill that you bring to this role. And that's why coach is the right word for you. My son just finished a very intense, the basketball son from the essay, just
Yeah.
finished a very intense senior year. And I just was writing some thank you notes to the coaches. And, they have this magic of like pushing and loving, and the good coaches do. And I feel like that is really what you brought to it. You were like pushing me to do more and think more and write more, but also being like, you also can do this. You're a good writer. Keep going, and that
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize I needed that second piece. I thought I just needed to be torn apart again.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying all of that. It means so much to hear. And so many writers are in that space. And most of the time, when writers come to me for potential working together, they are all looking for the editing. Very similar.
Mhm.
Like I
Mhm.
get most people coming to me because they want the editing, they think they need the editing. And I'm like, yeah, of course, I can absolutely do that. And I do.
You do.
I'm a developmental editor. I can read and give feedback and zero in on what's not working, what is working, and all of that. And what I see in those writers and what I saw in you is that comes from this self-doubt effectively.
Mhm.
Like
Absolutely.
you're doubting whether you have the skill and the ability to finish this thing, to be published, to be a good writer.
Yes.
And what I'm doing is like affirming that you are a good writer and your skill and talent is there. We just need to polish it a little bit. We just need to like fine tune it and like chip away the parts that aren't working and really build up the parts that are working.
That's so true. And I think it's like the industry. I've been thinking so much about the industry. I recently read a book I would highly recommend called Pitchcraft. Have you read it?
I haven't.
It's by a woman named Lauren Good. And
Okay.
sometimes those like sort of market yourself as a writer books leave me like exhausted because I'm just that's not my main interest necessarily or strength. But this one really just was a lot like what we're talking about, like encouragement. And she was just, but part of what she does, the kind of cant of the book, the way she's trying to orient you, is to get you out of the slush pile and the submission silence thing, where you're just like submitting and waiting 6 to 9 months for this journal to get back to you, maybe,
Yeah.
and to proactively pitch. And she has like template letters in there. And part of what she's saying is just like, you have to give yourself the pep talk, and in the pitch letter you're almost doing it being like, I can write about this and I have this great idea and you should really buy it from me. And like the act of like, because it is hard when you're on the passive side of writing, which is to say like the submission part, the writing itself is not passive, but then you
Mhm.
get to the like, I'm done and now I'm just nudging this thing out there in the world and it's just sitting in the slush piles. It is like a drain on confidence, right? It's
Yeah.
like, what am
Yeah.
I doing here? I have no agency, I have no power. I'm like, you've heard that expression, like silence is the new rejection, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
just being rejected everywhere because my thing's been sitting in this magazine's, submittables thing forever.
Yep.
And I think just remembering like you need to tell yourself that and you benefit from someone else in your life, like you telling you that, like you're a good writer, you can
Hmm.
write, that you have
Hmm.
something to say,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, well, so what are you facing now that might be a challenge or a struggle for you in your writing life?
Um, yeah, I think consistency is a piece. Like, so I had a lovely win last year. So after sitting in the slush pile at the American Scholar for a year, I had an essay published in July there.
Yes.
And they were lovely and apologetic when I actually thought it was totally dead. I had like status checked twice. No one had ever gotten back to me. And then the editor wrote me after a year and was like, we've been so delinquent. Is the story still available or the essay still available? So that was a win, but like in the kind of ups and downs of the waiting of these one-off submissions, I struggle with the consistency in my own practice
Hmm.
to write. Although I said earlier, when you and I talked earlier about the importance of literary community,
Yeah.
and I have had kind of a nice experience there. So, famous writer friend and I had started a little writing studio for women. We had found this kind of hidden below market rent space, and we had 3 or 4 women who shared the rent. And it was just a quiet space that wasn't our home and it wasn't our office, and it was sunny and it was plant filled. And um, but she moved, and another one of the women had a sort of life circumstance changes. And so there were 3 of us left, and then the building sold that we were in.
Oh.
And so I was pretty ready to throw in the towel for a lot of reasons. I mean, just like my children are leaving for college, there's more space in my house, it's quieter, could I really afford the quote luxury of this writing space? But one of the other women was like, I think we should keep it going. I really think we should keep it
Mm.
going. So we recruited 5. There are 5 of us in total. We're looking for 2 more, but we went for this little bit of stretch cost of a space, but it's a former architect studio. So it's like this beautiful, sunny space that we're hoping we can hold some writing workshops in and some other things. But what it's done for me is just, again, in the way working with you did, kind of like recenter the enterprise of writing.
Mm.
Like reminding yourself like this is worth investing in. It is worth it's important. Like it's a
Mhm.
like healthy, good thing. And from
Mhm.
that more will grow. Like you can't
Mhm.
you don't invest in the writing,
Mhm.
and part of
Mhm.
it that is being in community. It's listening to these other 2 women are screenwriters. One actually writes professionally for Amazon's productions, but has her own thing she's working on, and one's a fiction writer, and one's writing a kind of she's a nonprofit professional writing about her experience working with victims of sexual assault, actually. And so there's like a whole range of, topics and writing styles, and but the all of us working together to kind of encourage each other, and we just see each other in passing. We're often not in the space at the same time, but it's been huge. So that's really helped since we kind of doubled down and decided just to kind of go after a new space and everything. I've had much more consistency in my own
Mm.
practice.
Wow. So you moved spaces.
Yeah, so we moved to a space and it's a little farther away. It's all walkable from my house. I have no complaints. But it was just like all
Okay.
these little things that were making it's
Yeah.
more expensive, it's farther away. Like I was really not going to do it, but this lovely woman who was partnering with me on it initially, like or in the first version of it, was like, we got to keep it going. We got to keep it going. So
Yeah.
it's been great.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you just kind of said it in passing, but it's bigger. And so you're thinking about even doing workshops there. And
Yeah,
That sounds amazing.
we're just kind of beginning to get these. So we really would love to find two more writers who would like be in the space and contribute to the rent on a more regular basis. But lacking that, we've been looking at all these different things like our little arts council in our town. I mean, public funding is all up for grabs right now, but they give little grants to individual artists. And so we're like, maybe we could offer a kind of residency space and like get a grant that would cover, one desk, and that way people could come in. And so we're kind of dreaming, and
Yeah.
the five of us are committed to like making it happen. So
Yeah.
yeah, it feels really good. It feels like there's so much in life to suck your attention away from writing. If you have
Mhm.
a regular job, if you have a family, if you have like if you
Mhm.
anything, if you have anything
Mhm.
going on, or if you're reading the news, like anything.
Mhm.
So it just having something that kind of grounds you. And again, that's a plug for working with you as a coach, because that had the same effect on me. It just said, like, you need to center this thing that feels so important to you. You need to pay attention to it. It's worth the investment. And
Mhm.
it's you are an actual person then, kind of saying, yes, it is, and helping people grow.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that too. I especially like the emphasis on it's worth the investment because we're not, I mean, yes, there is a monetary investment. And that's often all we think about when we hear that
Yep,
word investment, but there are so many other things that require an investment, right? We're talking about our time, our attention, our energy, our focus,
totally.
our prioritizing. That all is still part of the investment. It's not just dollars. And women in particular have such a hard time with that. Um, Not
Totally.
just with writing, I think, but with really anything that just lights them up. There's some things I've been dealing with in my own personal life, and I'm just seeing how the depletion that women allow to happen to them
Exactly.
affects everything in their life, their relationships, their parenting, their just like how they feel about themselves.
Yeah. Or just your energy to do anything in the day. Like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I mean, you're just like you have this to-do list running through your head.
Yeah.
That little tagline, the woman who I kind of partnering with on this new space, that's what she says. It's not your home, it's not your office. And like something about that is like exactly right to me. Like I have a lovely home. I'm in a nice space here and I can write here. But I have dogs and children and, husbands and doorbells and laundry and all the things, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then I have a job too, which is also the mindset I'm in when I'm in this space. I work from home, but I'm, often in my like consulting mindset in this space. So when I get to the other to the writing studio space, it's like energy is not depleting.
Mhm.
It's library like quiet. It's
Mhm.
and to that end, I think you could make an investment, like you're saying, not even a monetary investment, but you could just decide, like, I'm going to go to the library these days and put on my headphones and just anything that really allows you to prioritize your writing it and just isolate it from these other things that do deplete you as creative.
Yes. 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 Oh, I love all of that. So if that's helping you with your consistency, how often do you get there?
Right now I'm getting there like 2 to 3 times a week
Okay.
for like 2 to 3 hours a time.
That's
Which
good.
that is good. For me, that's good. I go through periods where I'm really deep in, and like when I'm working on something where I'll go for like more like a half day or a chunk of a day. But so this is a good like regular thing.
Mhm.
I was out of town last week, so it didn't go last week. But in general, yeah, no, I am getting there, and it's funny. It was an architect space, and so it has these built-in desks, and I really thought I had this like perfect desk spot that I wanted to sit in, but we also have a table there to accommodate the other writers. And I've been like sitting at the table, and it's got this beautiful, it's like a storefront. So it's got people walking by on the street, and it's just like sunny. And we have brought our giant plants over to the new
Mhm.
space. And
Mhm.
I've been sitting there and just like really cranking stuff out.
Mm.
Been good.
Yes, I love it. And so, what are you working on?
Well, so again, in our earlier, conversation I had with you, we were talking about just having the intuition that the thing you were working on is not it's not its moment.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if you recall, but right after I finished my book, I had this kind of burst of energy, these pent up essays on nostalgia that were in my
Yes.
head, the question of nostalgia and memory and um I wrote a ton right out of the gate on those. I really did. So my book came out in 2022. There was kind of a lovely flurry of activity for the better part of that year. But 2023, I was just like on the nostalgia train. I was writing. But I just really, my energy really flagged around some of those pieces and revising them. And I think part of what happened to me is that I had been through that by that point, the experience of what it takes to have a lump of writing and turn it into a book. And it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was feeling like, oh my God, I have this like lump of essays about nostalgia and I don't have the energy to like turn it into a book, like, right, or refine
Mm.
it. And so that was a long time in letting go of those pieces. And I haven't totally let go of them. I still write in and around a few of them. But there's been some other pieces. I'm taking some classes, some graduate classes in this interesting program I could say more about. But so I've had to do some writing for that. And I've been writing a lot about attention. Like the piece that was in the American Scholar is about jigsaw puzzles, but it's really about attention and pleasure and productivity. And I'm interested in attention and nature and like just I'm sort of just following where my writing energy is. Did you read the book A Marriage at Sea?
No, it's on my list though.
It's fantastic. And finished that book and I wrote a review of it just really quick because it just brought to mind something else. And so I've been pitching that a little bit. I'm just trying to like, when I feel it and feel the energy, I just try to like jump in and work on a piece right now with the hope that eventually I will return to the nostalgia essays. I like what's there. I like the
Hmm.
material, but I just
Hmm.
lost the thread a little bit, you
Yeah,
know?
that's okay.
Yeah.
You'll find it again. It'll come back.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I mean, a lot of the stuff circles the same ideas that I'm interested in, like attention, imagination,
Hmm.
nostalgia, these kind of lenses or instincts we bring to the world that they're sort of, beyond our material experience of the world, and they're sort
Yeah.
of related to our consciousness and who we are. And I don't think, maybe it won't just be about nostalgia in the end, right? Maybe it'll
Yeah.
be about these other pieces too. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, so much of what you were saying just now is like, oh, I want to ask you about this. I want to ask you about this. And then both of those things could be like whole other podcast episodes on their own.
Yay!
But
We
I
can
will
do a multi-series.
I will say briefly, first of all, because you mentioned not nostalgia, consciousness. Have
Yeah.
you heard of and have you listened to the podcast, The Telepathy Tapes?
Oh, I have just the
Yes.
first. I haven't made it. I made it through like eight, and then for some reason we kind of stopped listening to them. But OMG.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's
great.
leave it a
I
teaser
mean,
for everybody.
even before you mentioned the idea of consciousness with some of those other themes you were talking about, the idea
Mhm.
of attention, I feel like, is largely present in what they're exploring in the
Uh,
telepathy tapes.
Totally. That's right. I think that's funny. I hadn't you're saying that and I'm agreeing and I hadn't really made that connection in my mind, but absolutely. No, I'm really interested in like what it is that like allows us in this moment in time. And also, I think a lot of this is circling for me too. I'm like, who isn't? I'm deeply troubled by AI, its
Yeah,
environmental impacts, its the impacts on my children. And
yeah.
so I'm really keen to hold on to this notion of like or explore the notion of like what is it that makes us human, like what is distinctly human in like in
Hmm.
creativity, in care and community, these things that like cannot be approximated or done by machines. Like what is distinctly human in them? And these some of these pieces, imagination, like empathy is really like imagination plus emotion, right? Like I
Hmm.
have this emotion and I can imagine what it must be like to be you, and therefore I'm empathetic, right? Like so
Hmm.
that's a very uniquely human experience. And
Hmm.
I'm so yeah. I'm really interested in all this stuff.
Like I said, that could be a whole other podcast episode.
Yeah.
Um, but then because you were also mentioning the idea of energy and following energy of the
Yeah.
work and your writing and where you have energy for what you're working on, how much do you know about or have you looked into human design?
Oh, well, just from you. You are my
Okay.
sole purveyor of human design ideas. I don't know. Yes, no. So I don't really have any idea, but it
Have
sounds
you
awesome. Like, every time I read that, I'm like, yeah, yeah.
have you looked up what your design profile is at all?
No,
Okay.
no, I
Okay.
didn't. I don't think I even knew I could do that. I just
Okay, yeah.
using the Janna shorthand
Okay.
sparkle routine.
Well, then a little shameless plug. I mean, it is my podcast, so I can plug my own stuff
Yes, you can
here.
plug yourself. Go for it.
But I what I have learned about human design just literally in the last year or even like 6 months has changed my not perspective. Well, a perspective, yes, but also just my approach around like what you were saying, where you didn't feel like there was energy around the nostalgia lump. I like how you called it a lump of essays.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a lump until you shape it into the
Right.
thing it's meant to be.
That's right. I have a lump of words.
Yeah. Sort of like clay. I love it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly what's in my mind.
But for writers in particular and creatives in general, like learning to understand how our own energy functions and how it shows up and how it affects the way that we operate has just been really life-changing for me.
Wow.
In
Yeah.
a way that it sounds like you're already doing it without fully understanding your own profile or the language or whatever, which you don't have to do. You don't have to know any of that stuff to be able to tune into your own energy. But where you're talking about following the energy and just kind of being okay with that, because it's really about what that is guiding you to in your life effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing that.
Yeah. I will definitely kind of do a deeper dive there because I really I was very obvious to me in this latest experience with this review of A Marriage at Sea. And I call it a review. What's another podcast we should have on the difference between criticism and review? Because
Okay, yeah.
whenever I sent it to, wrote me back, she was lovely. And she was like, yes, like I know her. And she was like, I think I'd be interested. Is it criticism or review? And I was like, I do not know. I'm not sure. But anyway, like one of the things from that writing that piece was just like it was so obvious. Like that, I finished that book, I shut it, and I was like, this is what I'm thinking. And I sat down and then I spent about like 5 days like playing with the ideas and the language. And then I know also about my energy. Like I have to put a piece away because I can't see it well for another like I need to not look at it for like a week at least. And then I pulled it back out again and like revised it again. And I had written a pitch to this woman and at the advice of this book, not sent the full essay, just excerpted pieces. And so she said, yes, I would love to read the full essay. So just yesterday, actually, I just finished revising it and sent it to her. But the whole point is, it was stark to me. Like I was like, I had so much energy. Like think about how fast it is, what I just described to you. 5 days,
Yes.
a week, and then I sent off a thing like that,
Yes.
like versus the nostalgia essays, which I was
Yes.
sitting with for like 6 months, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah, yeah.
Well, and that's exactly it. That's what happens when you are tuned into your own energy and you follow it. Like things
Hmm.
line up, things fall
Yeah.
into place because you're not working against yourself anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
So
Interesting. Yeah.
I had done this workshop a couple weeks ago called Human Design for Writers, and I'll probably offer it again because the response that I had from the group who attended was really fantastic and positive. Everybody is just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So keep an eye out for that. There
Yeah.
will probably be another version of it
Oh,
in the
good.
future
Oh,
where
yeah. Yeah.
I was explaining that it's just kind of exploded my world in the last like 6 months more so than the last year because I met a new person at the end of last year. Her name is Nicole. She has been studying human design for like 13 years or something like that.
Wow. Wow.
And she is just getting started as a human design practitioner. By that, I mean she will input your information, pull up your chart because you do get a chart like
Cool.
astrology, but it's a different kind of chart than astrology.
I like a diagnostic, an
Yes,
Enneagram, a Myers-Briggs.
it's a total diagnostic. Like I call it an energetic blueprint of your body where it shows you
Oh,
the
wow.
energy centers of your body and where the energy is flowing
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah.
Um, so she'll do like the intro to human design piece and talking about what the chart is, how it functions. With the virtual, we only have so much time. So she does that so it's very high level for each person to just kind of like look at their own chart individually. And
Yeah,
then
okay.
I bring in the strategy and the application. So like, okay, now what do you do with all of this information? How can you apply it to your life, but also
Oh,
specifically to your writing?
cool.
And then when
Okay.
I do it in person, we can do a full day, and she'll do individual like mini readings for the
Oh,
participants.
that's really
So
cool.
yeah,
Well, I
it's
mean, and
been really great.
it goes back, I mean, just to circle back to the thing that's been interesting to me, like the word is human design. Like I'm really
Yes,
interested. Like I feel like all will be lost pretty quickly if we stop paying attention to what is fundamentally human, right? Like what is
yes,
important,
yes,
like yeah.
yes.
I just yeah.
Well, and speaking of consciousness, it just ties right into what I'm learning about all this energy stuff, because Nicole, one thing that she talks about and describes is, it is a little woo woo, because we're talking about every person has an energetic aura, which
Mm-hmm.
is the way that your energy kind of like permeates out from your body. And when you connect with other people virtually, it can happen virtually too, but when you're in a room with others in person, your auras are overlapping with each other. And you
Hmm.
can basically like borrow from each other's energy.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And
That's really
so,
interesting.
learning about your own profile, one thing that I've started to understand is so beneficial is that you can become more aware of what is yours. Like, this is mine, and
And here's
that
what I
is
might be.
yours,
Yes.
but this is how we can affect each other for positive. Like, as long as I'm not um, kind of like taking on too much, or being
Right.
too overly influenced by the other energies that I'm around,
Right.
but
Right. No, that
cultivating your own awareness
yes.
helps
No,
you be able to discern that.
that's so interesting. Yeah, I think this is fascinating. I also
Yeah,
think I just saw this, but I haven't read it yet, obviously. But I think Michael Pollan might just have a brand new book, like brand
he
spanking new,
does.
out
He
about
does.
consciousness.
He
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
I was just with some friends last night, and he was here in Sacramento at an event,
Oh,
and they went to his event, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know about it until too late. I'm such a Michael Pollan fangirl.
me too. I love him. I love him. Yeah, no, that yeah, well this is all awesome and very like this is one of these like form feeds content realities because what we're
Yes.
talking about like is the process of writing, but really this is the stuff that's interesting me as content in my writing right now.
Yes,
So that's
yes,
really
yes,
cool.
yes,
Really
yes,
cool.
absolutely. Oh my gosh, this has been so amazing, and I love talking with you. It feels like we could just have our own separate
I
podcast.
think we could. Yeah. Put that in the hopper. For
So
sure.
before we wrap up, just tell the listeners where people can find more about you and your book.
Yeah, so the easiest way to find information about me and my writing is at my website, which is www.susannah, Susanahq, Pratt.com. But my book is called More or Less Essays from a Year of No Buying, and it's available. I'm going to lead with on bookshop.org. How
Yes,
about
yes,
that?
yes,
It's
yes.
also other major retailers have it. And it's also available as an ebook now, which it wasn't initially. So
Oh,
that's kind of
great.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if you really want a taste of my current stuff, you should look up the piece from the American Scholar, which is now, it was behind a paywall for a long time, but now it's not. And it's called Puzzled. And it's my last name, Pratt. So if you were to
Awesome.
Google those things, you could find that piece, and I'll give you a sense of my headspace right now.
Oh, awesome. Well, and I'll make sure to include links to all that stuff in the show notes for this
Oh,
episode.
awesome. Yeah,
So,
great, great.
thank you so much, Susie. It was great to talk, and
It's
we just have.
always, yes.
Oh, what a great conversation. Thank you again, Susie, so much for being here and joining me on this episode. And as you can tell, we kind of went deep. We went deep into energy, consciousness, all these things that are starting to permeate the minds and hearts of a lot of folks, at least in my world. And if you're not exploring those topics, that's okay. And also, I'm here and ready and willing to help you along that journey if it's something that interests you, especially when it comes to human design. Um, Last month, I did an online workshop called Human Design for Writers. Definitely will be offering that again, and probably even calling it something around the something along the lines of like harnessing your creative energy or tapping into your creative energy or something like that, because I'm learning that not a lot of people know what human design is. And so you say that and it's such an unknown that it might be bringing up a little bit of resistance around, ooh, I don't know what that is. I don't really know if it's for me. Well, I can guarantee you it is for you, because really what it is all about learning to understand how your energy shows up in your body and how it affects the way that you show up in the world and the way that you function and operate, maybe in ways that you were conditioned to function and operate and not really in alignment with your true self and your true energy. But learning about human design is a way to help you get more in alignment with the way you're meant to operate. And that awareness that Susie and I were talking about that starts with self-awareness can be the first step into uncovering and discovering and really opening up some new ways to access your creative work, especially if it's writing. Because even if writing is not your primary creative activity, a lot of our creativity starts with writing in whatever shape it takes, because we have to first articulate the thing that we're trying to bring into the world, and that will frequently start with writing, whether we're doing it privately in a journaling context or maybe in communication back and forth with a friend or a creative partner. And so I have started partnering with this friend of mine who is a human design practitioner and reads the human design charts and really has a wonderful breadth of knowledge around this framework. And I learn something new from her every time we have a conversation, and every time she does a workshop with me. I am a student and a participant just as much as the rest of the group. And then I come in behind and bring in some strategy and some practical application, because when we think about energy and energy flow, it can kind of be a little ethereal and stay in the realm of the intangible. And so that's really one of my strengths and where my energy flows, because what you would learn with human design is how you have different energy centers in your body, and depending on whether those centers are defined or not, you can be, if they're not defined, you can be easily influenced by the energy of others in those areas. And for me, one of my defined centers is my third eye. It's called the ajna in human design. And with my third eye being defined, that means that I instinctually have this energy for clarity and vision and seeing the big picture and seeing and understanding how to get to the place that we're trying to go. And I can offer that to the people that I work with. Like, I will be talking with folks, writers often, of course, and maybe you've heard some of my previous episodes where I've gone into this a little bit around, in just like a 5 or 10 minute conversation, somebody's talking to me and telling me about the challenges that they're facing in their writing. And I can just very easily like snap my fingers and in an instant see this very clear path for them with the steps, like, oh, have you tried this? And then what about this? And these are the steps that you could take to get unstuck and start to have some movement and momentum in what you're trying to do. I'm learning that's because I have this definition in my third eye, which brings that vision and clarity for me, for myself, but also for others that I encounter and interact with. And so when we're talking about this intangible kind of conceptual idea of energy and energy flow, you learn all of this information. It can be really overwhelming. Okay, what do you do with it? That's where my strategy and practical application come in. So that was a very long plug for this work that I'm starting to do with writers and creatives around harnessing creative energy. And so when I do those events, I also consider those to be retreats, like one-day retreats. The virtual version I did last month was 2.5 hours. It went over, we was almost about 3 hours, so that the next time I do it, I'll probably plan a longer event. But I consider those to be mini retreats. And then when I do them in person, they're full days from 10 to 6. And those are one-day retreats for you to kind of step away from your everyday life, go deep, get some focus, get some clarity on self-reflecting and learning about yourself, and kind of uncovering something new that you can then take with you and return back to your everyday life and start to make some tweaks and changes and see the positive effects. So if you want more information anytime I do those kind of events, moretothestory.co/retreats is the best place to get that information. Sign up for the wait list there. And if you are still looking for a little bit more specific input on what you're working on, moretothestory.co/book diagnosis is where you can always set up a free 15-minute call with me where I will diagnose whatever issue or challenge you're facing and recommend some ways to move forward, regardless of whether that includes working with me or not. And you know what else I forgot to say at the beginning of this episode? That this episode is sponsored by Cafe Santoro, which is my parents' boutique coffee roaster here in Northern California. Best decaf I've ever had. I'm not just saying that because I'm biased. I have many people who try this decaf and say, oh my gosh, this is so good. It doesn't even taste like decaf. Are you sure it's decaf? Yes, absolutely. It is decaf. I promise it's the best decaf you've ever had. So you can head on over to cafesantoro.com/Janna for a special discount off your first order of whole roasted beans from a boutique coffee roaster in Northern California, and that is CAFFESANTORO. There is 2 F's in the word cafe because it is Italian for coffee the Santoro way. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening. As always, you can find me on Instagram at Janna Marlise. You can find Under the Gumtree on Instagram at Under Gumtree. And of course, the theme song was written and performed by Jeremy Maron. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for listening. And I'll talk to you again soon on the next episode of More to the Story.